We're very excited to have everybody together today in the midst of what has to be the most wintry of winters in the last quarter century. I remember very clearly as a young person that we used to have, real winter. The kids in Toronto now, they complain, they whine, it's cold, there's snow. I'm like, listen, when I was a kid, we got snowed in on our street for days. Like, we could not leave the street. I remember there was a massive snowstorm the year that I was in my OAC, and that is a whole other thing. Yes, I did OAC. Okay. And there was a snowstorm. I was so vexed because we had a death in the family in Jamaica. And so everybody went to Jamaica to go to the funeral. But because it was December and I had my final exams for my OAC courses that were going to determine my university entrance in a month, I could not go. So I stayed home and I got pictures because, of course, the funeral is like day 2, right? You're there for 14 days and the funeral is on the second day. So the last 12 days, you're chilling. Feet up. I see pictures by pool, at the beach, standing outside the front of the house in white clothing and sunglasses, all of this, right? We had like the biggest snowstorm they'd had in like 30 years while they were gone. And I showed pictures of, oh, look, here's the car. You see that little lump in the middle of the snow? That's the car. This is what the driveway looked like because I only had enough energy and back strain resistance to clear half the driveway. And they're just laughing. So we know that there has been this thing called winter in the past, and we just got a real dose of it. Canada reintroduced itself the last week. So I'm glad you all were able to make it out to be with us tonight. I'm very excited. We got our Black History Show. We have the wonderful, the marvelous, the legendary Dwayne Morgan as our feature performer for tonight. And we are going to have ourselves a time. So we're going to start, just of course by, giving that acknowledgement of where we find ourselves. We always start by giving that land acknowledgement. Of course, because this is BlackLit Durham, we do it a little different than the standard acknowledgements that you see. We read an Afrocentric land acknowledgement that was developed at the University of Windsor by Kay Johnson, who is the executive director of the Human Rights, Equity, and Accessibility Office there. And so I would like to share it with you now. So the land acknowledgement is this. As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions towards decolonization. We acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that was never meant to be owned. We recognize that most of the land that was entrusted to the indigenous peoples was in some cases shared by choice, but all too often taken by force. We recognize the historical colonialism and the ongoing colonialism that has led to the present day situation where land acknowledgements are offered in place of land. As people of African descent, many of us have come here by choice, while many of us are here as the result of historical force. We acknowledge the complexities where we were promised land that was never given by those whose it was never to give. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. That's it. Just take a moment with that. Yeah, come on in. And then we also, as part of our opening of our event, especially in light of the fact that it is, as I like to refer to as Black People High Season, AKA Black History Month. For real, like MLK Day, like it ramps up and it doesn't slow down again until March 21st. Man, it's a busy time. I'll let Dwayne talk a little bit more about that when he comes up, because he might be the busiest Black artist in the country right now. We start the show also by playing a national anthem, not the Canadian one, although we're happy to be in Canada, even though it's cold. But we play the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. So I ask you all to rise in acknowledgement of that, if you are able. And we're going to play the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Victory is won.
Thank you all. You may be seated. And I hope that your hearts have been warmed much more than your fingertips. I'm still cold. I don't know about anybody else. I am still shaking. I'm still chilly. But I have to say that when I come to this event, I always feel good. I feel warm. I feel the love of this space. And we try to operate it in such a way that this is like a family convo with literary stuff mixed in. Does that make sense? And that's how we like to approach it. Now, we're paying tribute to the young people today. The young people did not come, but that's okay. We will still pay tribute to them. And I have a poem that I have written that is a tribute to the young people. That's written in the form of a prayer. And so I would like to share it with you all right now. It's called Fortitude Prayer. It goes like this. My body is a temple that I honor with respect and treat like a blessing from above. My mind is the power and foundation I set, made of strength, intelligence, and love. My life is like a canvas, my experience is paint, a work of art I'm proud to display. My soul is God's gift that he bestows without restraint and guides my heart through each day. Lord, grant us the wisdom, fidelity, and pride to clear our own path to the light. And may I reach my goals with my people in stride who keep the same vision in sight. For when I'm at the mountaintop, the vista is clear and Africa calls out its refrain. God grant our great people elevation over fear and the unity to reign once again. Some of you may or may not know that I guess it's about 3 weeks ago now. Yeah, about 3 weeks ago. What day is it today? The 19th? Yeah, 3 weeks ago. I turned 50, okay? I know, right? AKA Black Don't Crack. No, I mean, and it also coincided with the last time we got a huge dumping of snow, which was annoying because that day also coincided with the release of my latest book, Alphabet Soup, A Memoir in Letters. So I'm very excited about that. So at the next show in April, I'll get more into the book because I really want today to really be about what we're doing around encouraging young people to reach for their spark. But I did want to share a couple more poems with you just to warm up the crowd before you get Dwayne. I'm going to do a poem that is meant to be more inspirational, get out of your butt and go do some stuff kind of poem, and then more of a, Canada's an interesting place kind of poem from the perspective of a Black person anyway. So this first poem is about inspiration. It's about getting excited. You may have heard this piece. Some of you may have heard this piece before. It's one that I use often at the end of my sets. It's called Ignite, and it goes like this. Spark the light, ignite. Heat up the atmosphere in Kelvin, Celsius, and Fahrenheit. Dance and cast shadows as scorched leaves and wood flicker, and the crowd around the bonfire grows thicker and thicker. Share tales of yore passed down from generation to generation to warm up your thoughts and set a light imagination. When you breathe, feel the blaze of ash-laden air in your lungs. Feed the fire you feel inside. Your conflagration just begun. Stir the embers that singe the sky with every spin. Strum, sachet, and stroke. For your first notice fire, it is always signaled by smoke. It carries memory of solidity before fuel converts to flame. Looks down upon the gathering, reflects upon from whence it came. Ascends once freed from inhibition, sets an example we should heed while chaff-lit incendiary burns at a flame-lit constant speed. Shake the dust from your clothing. Use your singular voice to blend with the chorus before us. Make inflammatory choice. Spark the light. Ignite. Boil like lava beneath the calm, then create streams of creativity like volcanic balm. Flow flips from feeble to fire starter. Blackened heart seared in flame. When forged in such heat, you can never be the same. Singe to char every last fear. Vaporize tears from your eyes. Burn bright enough to endear you to the dawn as you rise. To inspire, we must wax like stars. Burn celestial bright. Melt excuses with the blaze, and when you feel the moment is right, seize the space to find cleansing through creative delight, then share it with hopeful abandon to everyone within sight. But for those beyond your hand's grasp, burn fury etched deep into their palms. Energy the artistic you emits enriches like spiritual alms. So that you dance, pink, soap, sing, spray, yeah. So whether you dance, sing, sculpt, play, sing, act, write, or recite, wow. And when your passions ignite, shine. When you spark your light. Jeez. Getting old. I gotta work on spitting that last line out again. All right, and then I want to end with one other piece. This one is one of my oldest performance poems, actually. It has a provenance that goes all the way back to, Lord, when did I write this poem? Like 2006, maybe, originally. So it goes way, 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 way back. So much so that I had to make a small change in the midst of the poem because I refer to Pierre Elliott Trudeau at the time. So now I have to say Trudeau Sr. so people don't think I'm talking about Justin. Like, that's how old this poem is. Anyway, but this poem is really about reflections on what it means to be a person of Black descent in this country and having to deal with the most annoying and irritating question that you can be asked as an immigrant or a child of immigrants like I am. Everybody knows what that question is, right? Where are you from? No, let me ask that again. I said, where are you from? Because Black folks are definitely not Johnny-come-lately. Our contributions are critical, central, and stately. When Champlain claimed New France for the Gaul with the crown, who did he have with him to guide him around but Matthew da Costa, who knew the lay of the land, and the languages spoken we know he could understand? But how would he know them unless he got here before the man credited with breaking new ground in our lore? The sheer gall with which power tries to silence, suppress the pain and the triumphs of my people, I guess time is now I say something and make myself clear. My home is here. East York was the place where my life began, at Toronto East General Hospital, by the capable hands of a Polish-born doctor who had a daughter the same age. He and my Jamaican mom watched as both children were raised by people who came to Canada for hope and a chance that their kids would develop the means to advance and have impact and blaze a path curtained in snow in a land where my Blackness at 20 below shiver shaking in shelters to go fight for my due, but now I plow ahead knowing what all of us knew. This nation was snatched from indigenous hands and built by their blood at oppression's commands. Disenfranchised, ignored, and whitewashed to submit to the dominant power of the French and the Brits all the way to today. And the rest benefit from the theft of a livelihood we won't admit, provides the foundations for an immigrant preserve while original peoples live, third world, on reserves. Now take a walk around downtown Halifax. There's black people there, endured centuries of viciousness, violence, despair, oppressed by their neighbors and the governments of the day. Did you think that those memories would simply fade away? The Loyalists, Maroons, and Africville stains are notable due to overt glints of chains. Revisionist bigots tried to gloss over those crimes of humanity, held hostage by their odious designs. I remind all those people who think Canada's mosaic is anything but farcical, mythic, and prosaic, that if you scatter a mess and then claim that it's beauty, to refuse to clean it up is dereliction of duty. When that's followed by attempts to cover up mistakes, how can we boldly assert that we're better than the states? I declare. Those who question my rights to this place, based solely on the color of my skin and my race, have been brainwashed to believe that our history is only white. And Laurier, King, and Trudeau Sr. held upright are the models our kids must be taught in our schools with the hope we adults are uncritical fools who revere that old leader who gave Smuts the idea to fleece black South Africans like Jason and Medea and build a golden oasis, an Afrikaans sanctuary based on our racist Indian Act. We've duped the unwary to believe King's xenophobia and Trudeau Sr.'s false construction of a society that justly birthed racial hatred's destruction. That idea is so ingrained it's now treated as a fact that our nation is the world's promulgation of a pact that assures immigrant groups that their vices abroad can be stifled over here. That perspective's a fraud. Black people here can tell you that racism's alive and encumbering restraints so that it's harder to thrive. So take heed and don't step up and glibly succumb to the urge asked with arrogance. Hey, where are you from? I'm born of this land and it's here that I remain. And the depths of my roots allow me to ascertain without doubt that this land of water, rocks, trees, and ice is exactly where I belong. My forebears paid the price so I could stand here and state with no shame and no fear, my home is here. Thank you very much. You're such a wonderful audience. This is amazing. What a wonderful... Make some noise for yourselves, everybody. Woohoo! Yay! Black History Month, hooray! So this is what happens at Black History Month, okay? In the lead up to Black History Month, people in various organizations, businesses, corporate settings, community settings, etc., they're like, Black History Month is coming. We need to find some black people. So usually by about September, the really on the point people start to get, they're like, if we want to get the really, really good black people, we need to book them now. So they start booking in like September, October. Then some other people are like, oh, Thanksgiving's over. And you're like, oh, I want to give thanks to black people. Let me see if I can book some. So then those people who are a little bit more keen, October, November, they start to book, right? December comes, everybody's like, it's Christmas time, I don't want to do nothing. So everybody just kind of hibernates. Nothing much happens in December. Then the new year happens, everybody's all happy, and they come back and they're like, oh snap, February's next month. And we were supposed to book some black people. Shoot, I hope we can still find some. And then they start to scramble to see if they can find some black people to book to do this, that, the other thing. Then Martin Luther King Jr. Day comes around on the third Monday of the month, and people are like, oh my goodness, Black History Month's in like 10 days, and we don't got nobody. So like the real slackers, they start to wake up. And because, especially here in Toronto, people are Torontonians, and Torontonians are last-second people, January 31st comes around. Oh snap, Black History Month is tomorrow, and we haven't booked anybody yet. So then you get people calling you in February to book you for an event in February. This happens every year. And the person who I know who has to experience this the most out of any other human on the face of this planet is our feature this evening. So Dwayne Morgan has been doing poetry and spoken word Since he was 18 years old in an organized fashion, that was when he founded Up From the Roots Entertainment. I can say all this stuff from memory because when we were 18 years old is when Dwayne and I actually became friends. That's when we met. And he was just starting Up From the Roots at that point. And I said to him, like, what are you doing this poetry thing for? Like, why are you focused on that? He's like, well, this is what I want to do and yada, yada, yada. I got a plan, you know, 'cause he's very business-minded. He's got it all figured out. It's like, I know what I'm going to do. And at that time, I was still rapping. So I was like, poetry. It's all about hip hop, brother. You know, I did that, blah, blah, blah. 10 years later, when he walked into the poetry show and I was there starting my poetry career, he's just looking at me like, oh, okay. You know, so he teases me about that still. And I tease myself about it in advance so that when he comes on stage, he can't tease me about it. I take that away. That's right. I take that away. But I have to say, Dwayne is one of the most experienced and successful spoken word artists in Canadian history, period. He has claimed, is it 2 or 3 championships now? It's 2. Okay, it's 2. One of them with me. The other one with some other people, but you know, it's okay. You're allowed to win other championships too. He's a recipient of the Premier's Award of Excellence for the Arts. He is a member of the Scarborough Walk of Fame. He has a star at Scarborough Town Centre. If you've not seen it, you should go check it out. He's also a member of the Order of Ontario, amongst his many, many, many accolades. Dwayne is considered by many to be the godfather of Canadian slam poetry and of spoken word in general. He is a national treasure. I am extremely blessed to have known him for as long as I have and to have had a wonderful friendship, a supportive and mutually beneficial friendship in terms of life and poetry. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me extreme pleasure to introduce to you the man himself, Dwayne Morgan. You can keep plotting, he's not here yet. There you go. Use this one or that one?
All right, let's use this one. Tell me. All right, good evening. How's everybody doing? All right, so we got to set the framework here for like how I like to operate and stuff, right? So myself being of Jamaican parentage and heritage, we have a thing where we like vibes and energy. And when I was just introduced to y'all, after all those accolades y'all just heard, y'all did the most daddy kind of welcome. I didn't even want to do the walk to come on the stage. That's how bad I felt with that kind of clap, right? That means y'all aren't even ready. So what we first have to do is make sure the room has some proper energy in it, because the more energy you give to me, the more energy I'm going to give back to you, and it just keeps bouncing back and forth, and we have a good time together. And if you came outside when it's this cold, that means you came to have a good time, and I want to deliver that for you. So that means we all got to work together, right? Like Greg said, it's a mutually beneficial friendship that we have. It's the same thing. It's got to be mutually beneficial. I'm going to give to y'all. Y'all got to give to me. Can we do this? All right. Can we make some energy in the room? All right. Excellent. So it's only when I got here and maybe like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes ago that I found out that I was like the main performer that was happening here. I had no clue. Greg neglected to mention this. I thought it was going to be me and a bunch of other people or whatever, right? So I'm just like, all right, so now what are we going to do? So I want to share some stuff with you, some of my work, but also, you know, some of the stories and the journey and the behind the scenes kind of things that have kind of helped me to be where I'm at today and do the things that I do. So one of the first things is that language is important. And you know, a few weeks ago, they had the Bell Let's Talk Day, and we're going to use this as an example because we often speak of mental health and speak about it like it's this one thing, and it is not this one thing. It differs based on who you are, gender, all of these different kinds of things, and no one ever speaks of it. We just mental health, like it's all affects everybody the same. So I wanted to address that. So this is going to be my starting point for my presentation to you this evening. When the World Health Organization says that proximity to racism is a determinant of health, just imagine how many people of color are walking around you feeling unwell because mental health isn't something you often speak about in an immigrant house. It's a sign of weakness. And you aren't allowed to be weak when life gives you so much that you have to handle. So they say they want to talk. All right, let's talk. Let's talk about those people in poverty splitting paychecks with the people they've left back home. Let's talk about the way immigrants try to make their accents vanish, told that their English isn't good enough by someone who can only speak one language. Let's talk about mental health being a luxury that not everyone can afford because when you're poor, you just have to figure it out. Let's talk about being over-policed, under surveillance when just trying to be. Now, if the safest communities also have the least police presence, how does it make you feel when your neighborhood's a prison? Let's talk about the irony of security guards being hired to secure things that they can't afford from people who look like them. Let's talk about underemployed, racialized professionals with families to feed who have no choice but to drive Uber Eats, memorizing these foreign streets like roadmaps to home. Yo, you say you still want to talk. All right, let's talk. Let's talk about how foreign their English name looks on their resume. Let's talk about how we can all say Schwarzenegger, but your cultural name, that's just too difficult. Your culture, that's just too difficult. You're just too difficult. Let's talk about those made to feel sorry for their sorry, those made to apologize for the food they consume in the lunchroom. Let's talk about cultural, emotional suicide, the way we hide and suppress parts of ourselves just to get by, to see another day or make things easier for our kids. Now they say they want to talk, and I'm here for it. So let's talk about this. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, I am the child of Jamaican parents. And both of my parents came to this country at 21 years of age. And when my parents came to this country at 21 years of age, neither one of my parents knew that they were black. Sometimes I will say that to people, and they're like, what is this guy talking about? How can you be 21 years old and not know that you're black? Well, I am going to explain it to you. Both of my parents grew up in parts of Jamaica where everybody looked like them. So race didn't exist. Race was not a thing. It was not a concept. You were your name and you were Jamaican. The end. Then they came to Canada. And at the airport, their passport was stamped and returned to them. And with the passport, they were given a new identity. Now you're black. And they had no idea what that meant. So now they had to figure out a new country, new systems, new weather, and a new identity. For the first time, they were black. They became black over the course of a 4-hour flight. They boarded the plane, Jamaican, got off the plane, black. Now, as they tried to figure out life in Toronto, they saw how people treated them because they were black, and things that people would say to them because they were black. And they were like, oh, I guess this is what this being black thing is. Because up until that point in their lives, no one had ever said things like that to them before. No one had ever treated them in those kinds of ways before. So even though we speak about multiculturalism and diversity and all these kinds of things, it is so important that we recognize that for many people, their first experience with racism, being othered, happens right here when they arrive. To be a gift. Born into this world male, packaged in black skin, is to be constantly reminded that your life is disposable, that it lacks meaning and value and isn't protected by the law. You live with the knowledge that justice is a drunk that will not be served. We, the black gifts, are the first to be accused and the last to be believed. We are the guilty until proven innocent, the aggressor despite the evidence. We're the hoops for which loopholes are made. We're the sambos, the puppets. Our value determined by the worth we bring our puppeteers. So dance, Negro, dance. Rap, black boy, rap. Run, boy, run. But what about those of us who are regular, who are average, who don't have gifts or talents that the world wants or needs, who are just their bodies, packaged in black skin, stuck on modern-day plantations, being abused at will, and people wonder why we seldom smile and it seems like our looks could kill. We are the ones who put basketballs in our sons' palms before they can walk and only dribble, with the hope that they will grow to dribble beyond their packaging. We are the ones that make elevators go quiet, purses and loved ones clench tighter. We are the deer that stare down the barrel of guns, but there is no license needed to hunt us. We are the suspicious packages at the airport or in any store with goods that we aren't supposed to be able to afford, whether in a hoodie or a suit, accused of driving while black in minivans or coupes. We are the black licorice discarded at Halloween, the silhouette used for target practice by the police, the black men who spend their days wanting nothing but to be human with respect and dignity. So this is for every Trayvon, Jaquan, Marcus, Jordan, Dwayne, every black man considered a nobody despite having a name, for everyone who has ever felt the pain of race, for the empty seat beside a black man on the train, for we are the ones who meet death on cold asphalt, discarded like roadkill. We are the ones, worthless bodies packaged in black skin that nobody seems to want. We are the voiceless. We are the ones. Thank you. So my parents wanted to become parents, and they found themselves the parents to 2 black children. This is significant because as the parents of black children, having experienced what they have experienced in this country, they had to ask themselves, how do we raise these children to know that their lives have purpose, meaning, and value, where ever since we have arrived here, people have tried to make us feel as though we lack purpose, meaning, and value. So part of how, come through. Yeah, man. I want everybody to be comfortable. So part of how we are raised and how we are socialized is to survive. While other people can just go through the world and just try to thrive, we are taught from very young how to survive in a world that is going to see how we look and judge us based on how we look. If you go into Walmart, Canadian Tire, any store, and there's a white family, and the child in that family is having a tantrum, and there's a black family that sees this tantrum, the child in the black family is going to look at this other child having the tantrum and think to themselves, that is awesome. The parent of that black child is going to look at their child without even saying a word. Just through the eyes, they are going to say to their child, don't even think about it. And this happens because that parent knows that if you throw that tantrum, security's coming. If you throw that tantrum, the police are coming. We understand that we live in a world where we will be able to see other people do things that we cannot even imagine doing. And this is part of how we survive in an environment that is hostile towards us, that other people don't always even recognize that it is hostile. So this is why these kinds of conversations and moments are so important, because these are the experiences that we all have and we know all too well, but we just kind of keep them to ourselves and we think we're the only ones who know. But we know because it's how we survive. It is how we have gotten to this point. It is the things that I have to say to my daughter that other people don't have to say to their kids, because I know people will see the color of her skin and her hair before they actually see who she is. And it is my responsibility to keep her as safe as possible. It was 4 a.m. when she woke me. And I can still remember the cold sweat on the back of my neck like it was yesterday. 17 years have now passed, and I can still remember the pregnancy test in my hand and how it felt like my heart and my world had stopped simultaneously, and nobody knows this. But at every doctor's visit, as he would perform routine ultrasounds, I would look from the ground to the screen, hoping, praying to God that none of the squiggly lines that I was seeing would confirm this little being as a boy. And I don't feel good about it. But I've lived a long time in skin despised simply for its hue, so every November I go populous. Now, out of disrespect, I'm just not a fan of Remembrance Day, remembering that there has never been a plane sent to save us. We are the displaced, our bodies and religion stolen. We were given a new prophet as they used us to make profits. Ask Nike what a black man is worth. For hundreds of years, we've been killed as a form of amusement, gunned down with no fear of repercussions, so don't blame me for not wanting to be burdened by the birth of a black boy born into a world built on his back, forcing me to teach him how to write and his rights, knowing that even my greatest efforts can't keep him alive when his skin is a threat. So yes, I stood there, staring blankly at a screen, hoping, praying to God that none of the squiggly lines that I was seeing would confirm this little being as a boy. Maybe having a girl would increase my chances of not having a child who'd grow up to be a hashtag trending, because the killing of black men has been a trend since forever. So we write Black Lives Matter, not to try to inform others, but to try to convince ourselves in a world that is constantly showing us otherwise. And my heart can't help but break for those parents who have had their children snatched from their lives. It was an April afternoon when I found myself pacing around a delivery room, wondering if my prayers would be answered at 3:20. The most precious little girl was presented to me, and I cried uncontrollably for hours, knowing that I had just been blessed. Not because having a girl would make her worth more, but because we live in a world where black boys will always be worth less. Thank you. So up until grade 4, I grew up in Markham, Ontario. And at the time, my sister and I were 2 of the 3 black students in the entire school. And I will not repeat to you names that we were called, little jokes that were made about us. And they had this song that they would always sing. They'd tease us to get us into fights. And then they had this song, fight, an N-word and a white. And at the time, I knew I wasn't white. So I'm like, I guess I'm the N-word. But I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, how do these kids know this? So I didn't even know this name that I'm being called at school. But my classmates made going to school an absolutely horrible experience because I wasn't able to go to school and show up as myself. Even at school, while the kids around me were there to thrive, I was in school just trying to survive, just trying to get through the day. My parents, having not gone to school here, would send us to school with thermoses of foods that we love to eat at home. Jerk chicken, rice and peas, and back in those days, nobody knew what that was. So when lunchtime would come and you open up the thermos, all the other kids would gather around. Yo, what are these black kids eating? And it became a spectacle. Another thing that they would use to make fun of us, to make us feel like we were less than or different because our lunch wasn't the same lunch that they were having. And I remember going home and saying to my mother, can you please just give me a sandwich? I just want to be like all the other kids. I don't want all the smoke at lunchtime. Just give me a sandwich so I can eat in peace. And she did. The problem was I hated sandwiches. To this day, I still hate sandwiches. And because I hated sandwiches, I would never eat them. I would just bring them home. But when I got home, I realized I had yet another dilemma. Because if you grow up in a home with immigrant parents, the number one rule is you are not allowed to waste food. So now, here I am with this sandwich in my bag, and now I'm really going to be in trouble because what am I going to do now? My grade 4 brain came up with a brilliant idea. I would hide the sandwiches in my closet. So every day after school, I would come home and I would hide my sandwich for that day in the closet. My grade 4 brain had no idea that my home would become fragrant, that my parents would launch an investigation to discover what on earth is the smell in this house. And that investigation led them to my room and a stash of molding sandwiches in the back of my closet. And in that moment, it was discovered that I was going to school every single day, and I would rather starve than be myself. I would rather go without eating than have other people make me feel as though I was less than, as though I was other. You see, sometimes when we other people and we treat people in negative ways, we don't see the impact of these things. We don't see the things that they have to do simply to survive being around us. So we have a choice every day when we come across people. Do we take the time to build people up or do we tear them down? Because oftentimes through our jokes, through our comments, we're doing one of those two things. And I know what it feels like to have people tear you down. And for a good chunk of my life growing up, because I was in, when I moved to Scarborough, because I was in Scarborough, because I was black, because my parents separated, because of all of these different things, I heard all of these things that told me you would never amount to anything. You're not supposed to be anything. People who look like you, who come from where you come from, don't amount to much. And it's amazing how easy it is to believe that. And your parents will tell you positive things. And as a child, you say to yourself, yeah, you're my parent. You're supposed to say that. But these people at school that don't even know me, they got it right. And you internalize all of this negativity about yourself and don't even realize that it's happening. There was a study that looked at how early we develop attitudes around race. And I took a bit of that study for the beginning of this next poem and then just some stuff with my daughter. Michelle, age 4, white. Michelle, which doll is the pretty one? The white one. Raquel, age 4, white. Raquel, which doll is the mean one? The black one. Natasha, age 4, black. Natasha, which doll is the nice one? The white one. Keisha, age 4, black. Keisha, which doll is the ugly one? The black one. Keisha, which doll looks like you? The black one. By the age of 4, the seed of racism, self-hatred, and inferiority is already subconsciously planted in the brain, like sugarcane, like cotton, like cash crops that will benefit those who grow it more than those who sow it, and don't I know it. As a father of a daughter who struggles to see herself on store shelves, these are little black girl blues. You can find darker hued versions of white dolls that look nothing like you. Straight hair, straight nose, forcing parents to have to straighten things out, removing the kinks of self-doubt, becoming vigilant, parenting becoming militant, but only if they get it. Only if they understand the damage being done and the need to protect her identity by any means necessary. Birthday invitations included the postscript, "Please no white dolls," which created their fair share of conversations. Protection seen as reverse hatred. The few dolls of a lighter hue that managed to sneak past our border wall soon found themselves missing like Native women in Canada. It is funny, this little thing called race. How it plays out from day to day and has us worshiping things that look nothing like us. Whether dolls on store shelves or their version of Jesus, and these little things are always so much bigger, which is why she forgets cartoons but remembers every detail from Hidden Figures, and some will still see this as nothing. But I saw her desire to become a doctor after watching Doc McStuffins because representation matters. It matters to see yourself reflected in the society in which you live, not as a cliche or stereotype, but just as normal and positive. And maybe this is too much to ask when the fabric of our economic quilt happens to be anti-black. Periodically, I will ask, if you could, is there anything about yourself that you would change? At 17 years of age, her answer has remained the same. No, I'm pretty awesome. Yes, you are, I always reply. Fist of pride held high, beaming on the inside, emanating out proud that there's one less black girl who refuses to play and be shaped by society's dollhouse. Thank you. Thank you. So, in 2025, you would be amazed at how difficult it is to go to a store and find a doll that looks like my daughter. Same features, same texture of hair. Try to find an indigenous doll, a doll wearing a hijab. You would think that this is a no-brainer. These people are all around us. They're not in the doll aisle. When a child goes into the doll aisle and they look at all the dolls and there is no doll that looks like them, what is communicated in that moment? Nobody wants you. You don't matter. You're not the choice. And then they look at all the dolls that are there and they say, oh, that's who matters. That's who's important. That's what I have to look like and be like in order to be chosen. Now, this is so important because a lot of the black dolls that exist are just the white dolls. They just darken the plastic. Now, this becomes extremely problematic, especially for black women and to a lesser degree, black men. Because there was a time in my life when, I don't know if they were just trying to strengthen my neck muscles or what the case may be, but when my mother had to comb my hair and braid it up a little bit, the way my head was snapping back, I'm like, what is happening here, right? My sister had to go through that way longer than I ever did. I was so happy to go to a barber and not have to deal with that again. But imagine a child sitting between their mother or grandmother's legs, having their hair combed, and they are sitting there playing with a doll, and the comb is just gliding through the doll's hair at the same time while their hair is getting snapped back. And they sit there wondering, why isn't the comb going through my hair like this? And we don't even realize in that moment they're setting up this little inferiority thing where they think that their hair isn't good enough. Their hair isn't beautiful. Their hair has to be something else in order to be accepted. And that is why it is so important that there needs to be dolls with the actual texture hair that our girls have, so that they don't go through that experience of thinking that something is wrong with them. Now, when I was in elementary school, one of the things I like, Crayola, they have the 24 box of crayons and pencil crayons. And with the crayons, I can't remember with the pencil crayons, but with the crayons, on the piece of paper, it tells you what color it is. So if you're not sure it's purple, it tells you, purple. Now, when I was in elementary school, one of the crayons in the box was called skin color. I don't know if anyone else had that box. What was communicated to every single child whose skin was not that color? Nobody wants to see pictures of you. You don't matter. It is that easy for us to other people. You mean to tell me, think about it. How many meetings had to happen before that crayon ended up in the box? And nobody said, hey, you know what? There's more than one skin color. Or maybe somebody did say that and somebody else said the other ones don't matter. One of those two things has to be true. But that is the reality of the world that we live in, where oftentimes we are made to feel as though we're not even here, as though we don't even exist. And then if we speak up, we can't be too loud. We can't be too black. We can't be twos. So it's like you're constantly trying to fit into some kind of box when you just want to be. You just want to wake up in the morning and enjoy life, be a part of life, not always be just trying to survive. So my daughter, when she was in grade 6, she would always tell me about things that were going on in her school and in her class. And she's a very interesting young person. She got in trouble quite a bit. She was very enterprising. Like, she would always just start businesses to get other kids money, and would just, I was okay with it, but the principal was not. But she would tell me about things that would go on in school. And I think it's, in my life journey as a girl dad, which is now going on 17, almost 18 years, I think one of the first things is you have to be willing to listen to children, first of all. Second of all, I've never been a woman. So what am I talking to her about womanhood? I have to learn from her. So I have to humble myself enough to know that I don't know it all, and be willing to learn from her, because I don't have her experience. So when she does choose to speak to me, which the older she gets, this is more and more rare, but when she does choose to speak to me, I have to pay attention because there's likely going to be some things I knew absolutely nothing about. So at this time in grade 6, this is the poem that I wrote based on what she shared. When my daughter told me that she was being teased by one of the boys in her class, I couldn't help but laugh, knowing that he had picked the wrong one. A girl with a razor-sharp tongue who would sharpen her edges on a fragile ego just for fun, if provoked. I let her know the next time he loses his mind, simply tell him you're only doing that because you like me, but say it when he's with his friends. Watch him shrivel up like the Wicked Witch of the West, because the worst thing for a boy is to be caught having emotions that aren't anger or aggression, to be forced to be held accountable for his actions and intentions, and who's teaching the boys that no means no? Not maybe. Not maybe she didn't mean it. Not maybe she should try again later, until such time that boys no longer feel a sense of entitlement simply because of how they were born. I will continue to be a thorn in their sides, a parenting vigilante, okay with Me Too as a movement, but not wanting it to be a part of another generation's reality. So I've given her permission to snap at any boy who thinks that snapping bra straps is cute, to clap back at anyone who gets confused, thinking they can touch without permission or invitation. And who's teaching the boys that their unsolicited opinions are okay? Until such time that things change, I will continue to teach her to be careful, know where the exits are, yell fire instead of rape, watch your drinks, travel in groups, until such time that boys will be boys ceases to be used as an excuse, freeing them from taking responsibility. I will question, who do these boys become when they are taught that it is taboo to love, to like, to feel? Every 3 days across this land, a woman or a girl is killed 90% of the times at the hands of men. Who's raising the boys who grow up to be them? Who's teaching the boys that rejection is just another part of life? Until such time that missing a shot with a girl is treated with the same nonchalance as missing a shot in a game, I will continue to teach her that pain doesn't mean I like you, and to be wary of predators cloaked in affection, because there are some who will seek to build themselves up using the broken pieces of your self-esteem, pieces broken by their very own hands. Who's teaching the boys not to use their words, to have expectations for the bodies of others that they would never accept for their own, to act as though they are owed simply because they were born male with no other virtues? Have you ever questioned who's teaching the boys? Yeah, I get it. Me too. Thank you. So I'm going to chit-chat and share 2 more poems with you. Originally, I was asked to do 15 minutes here. We're now at the 32-minute mark, all right? So, well, Greg, when I got here, Greg was just like, hey, if you feel it, just keep going. But I am, as a writer and as a speaker, your word has to mean something. And if I say to you, I'm going to give y'all something, then y'all have to sit there and receive it until we finish, right? But if I'm boring you, let me know. If not, we got a bit more in the tank, all right? Now, when my daughter was much, much younger, she would always bring me these books to read at bedtime. And there was always a girl, woman, princess going through life, and life was awesome. And then she got to a fork in the road, didn't know what to do, and needed some boy, man, prince to save the day. And I thought to myself, these books are horrible. Why am I participating in this? I don't want you to grow up thinking that this is how life is supposed to go. So in life, things can happen and you can ignore them and pretend you didn't see them. Things can happen and you can complain about things, or things can happen and you can do something about it. So I chose to write my own children's book because it was so hard finding books with characters that looked like my daughter, that had a message that made sense to me. So even though we're mostly adults, we're going to do the book anyways. And it goes like this. I look forward to bedtime. I let her choose whatever story she wants to read, and then I wait to see what adventures we find. Time after time, I've come to realize that there are dangers lurking on bookshelves. Words and sentences used to affirm the imaginations of boys while leaving girls to wonder if they're good enough to find their prince. And to think, we socialize girls to find their prince charming while never teaching boys how to be charming. I find this alarming. So allow me to tell you some things that these books refuse to in this life. You had better learn how to take care of yourself. There is no man coming to save you, but one who will always have your back. As a matter of fact, the man that you choose to love might end up being the one that you need to be protected from. As a matter of fact, your knight in shining armor might come riding in a plaid shirt, stilettos, or both. Who knows? Keep your options open. As a matter of fact, you might even end up alone, and that is also okay, because there's no reason to believe that you don't already have everything that you need and that some man is going to come and magically make you complete when you are far from a damsel in distress. Look at this world that we live in. If there's anyone that needs saving, it's probably men. So don't just spend your days only fantasizing about a wedding when there's so much adventure to be had. You can be an astronaut and fly to the moon. You can be an animator who invents cartoons. You can be a chemist or a mechanical engineer. You can be a makeup artist, help people style their hair. You can be anything that you want under the sun. But always remember that if a frog comes up to you and asks for a kiss, the first thing you should do is run, because playing princesses is cool, but there's no reason to believe that your self-worth should be tied to the views of one who sees you as more destined for the sidelines and being in the game. I don't work this hard for you to not slay. So for every young girl who dreams big dreams, who wants to do things this world has never seen, you go, girl. Show off your magic. Be awesome. Make it a habit. Don't sit and be silent. Raise your voice and make noise. Embrace your imagination and leave the fairy tales to the boys. All right, so very quickly, I do have books out in the foyer, so, if you can support, please do. That is actually my daughter's favorite of my poems. We both on our forearms have lines so we did daddy-daughter tattoos, and we both have lines from that poem tattooed on our forearms as our little thing together. One of the last things that I want to say to you, I never imagined that this is what I would be doing with my life. I am actually a shy, quiet introvert who does not like speaking to or in front of people. And my job is to speak to and in front of people. So, most times people will see me in the background, just, not really around people, just off by myself. And sometimes people say, I'm stuck up, I'm stush, I'm this. No, I'm just shy and quiet and love to be in my own little bubble. When somebody says my name and there's a microphone, I come alive and then I go right back in the shell afterwards. And that's just me. But I had to learn how to overcome something that people might consider to be a barrier to success. And I work hard every single day. It is the only thing I know, because the path that I'm on is not a path that others really traveled before me. So I had to create a path that allowed other people, Greg and a whole other lots of people, to follow that path. And a lot of times, when I was growing up, again, when Greg, back in the days when Greg was laughing at me for being a poet before he started writing poems, people would think that the stuff that I wanted to do was not possible. And I am living proof that all things are possible. The way the human brain works is, how can you imagine something that isn't possible? How could something impossible even make it into your head? That doesn't make sense. So if something makes it into your head, it's because it is possible, because you're seeing it in your head. You just have to figure out how to get this into real life, into this physical realm and physical form. But if you can see it in your head, that means it's not impossible, because you're seeing it. You're looking at it. And so many times when I speak to young people, I really try to encourage them to tap in to what is on their spirit, what is in their mind, that creativity. In this world that we live in of social media, everybody wants the glitz and glamour, nobody wants the work. And the reality is, there's no glitz and glamour without the work. The work is the ugliest part. This part looks wonderful. The behind the scenes is ugly. Nobody wants to do that part. But you don't get here without that part. You don't learn the lessons without that part. So it is so vital, it is so important that you are willing to work hard, get your hands dirty, fail. For the young people especially, but for anybody trying to do things, the only reason I'm on this stage today is because I'm one of the biggest failures you will ever meet. And that's because I'm not afraid to try. Because the only way to not fail is to not try. If you are trying, you are going to fail. But failure means you are on the road to succeeding. Because nobody succeeds without failure. Now, my parents, who I spoke about before, my mother in particular, grew up in St. Thomas, Jamaica, in a very rural community. In 2025, the house that she has in Jamaica, there is no running water on Wednesdays. So on Tuesday, you have to catch the water that you think you're going to need on Wednesday and just have it in buckets and different things. Now, it has always been very important to me that my daughter knows where she comes from because many of our young people take so much for granted. They have everything at their disposal and don't even know what to do with it. For many of us as parents, we work so hard to give our children absolutely everything except the discipline to know what to do when you have everything. So they end up taking all of that for granted. So I wanted her to experience real Jamaica. I wanted her to see the goats walking down the street. I wanted the roosters to wake her up at ungodly times of the morning. But I really wanted to see, could she navigate having a bath in a bucket? That was the one I really wanted to see. Could she make that happen? Because in Jamaica, they just know how to do it. When you take this child who's used to turning a thing and hot water comes out, and you say, go in there and bathe in a bucket, that is a comedy show for at least half an hour. But it was so necessary that I wanted her to know the journey. Because it wasn't always you just turn the pipe and hot water comes out. There were sacrifices, there were indignities, there were all sorts of things to get to the point where you can do that. Now imagine this. My mother growing up in a place where in 2025 there is no running water on Wednesdays. And in my living room, there is a photo on the wall of me standing up next to President Barack Obama. You want to talk about things that are impossible. Nobody growing up where she grew up thinks I'm going to give birth to a child who's going to stand next to the President of the United States, the first black president of the United States. There is nothing that is impossible. All things are possible if you are willing to do the work. Why are the black poets so aggressive and always talking about race? Even here, under the facade of a safe space, it happens. Passion mistaken for aggression. It seems as though every time we strive to be great, we are broken down to nothing but our race. Mario Balotelli. Where do you call home when you have received no acceptance in the only place you have ever known? You proudly wear an Italian flag that others wish they could pull from your chest. And while it says Balotelli on your jersey, they have called you King Kong, dehumanized you with no red cards, treated you like a blackhead on the face of the beautiful game, thrown bananas at you as you have walked onto the field. It is amazing how alone one can feel on a pitch full of men. If only I could score enough, win enough, maybe I could outrun my skin, but no, Mario. At some point, we have to stop running when the issue isn't us. Stop shifting to fit into boxes when we were born enough. You see, the scales of equality seem to have a permanent slant, allowing you to get more jail time for killing a dog than for killing a black man. So we step to the mic, victims of our skin tone, step onto courts, stages, fields, eager to play, knowing that for us, it will always be more than just a game. Fact. White athletes are praised for their hard work, discipline, and knowledge of the game. Fact. Black athletes are praised for being naturally gifted, freaks of nature with natural athleticism. Ironically similar traits to when we were being auctioned off as slaves. I guess it's no mistake why they call it color commentary, as Serena's body is ripped apart, scrutinized more than her skills, her dominance, not tied to decades of discipline and devotion, but to being masculine and aggressive. A double fault for the masses who believe there's only one mold for what a woman should look and sound like. So in 2025, we still ask, is the U.S. open to a Compton kid kid, crip walking across courts with no care for your insecurities, casting shadows with her wingspan, and while some would love to see her crash and burn, she remains that phoenix rising from the Arthur ashes, affirming that there will always be hate, but never let that stop you from striving to be great. No matter your talent or your job, you can be that tiger mastering courses you were never meant to play on. So for the Jamaican immigrant suspended from school for being too loud, for the poet accused of being aggressive when they step in front of a crowd, release that aggression like a Serena Williams serve at an open mic or grand slam without ever giving a damn for what anyone has to say, because these odds are stacked against us, but we still show up to play. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep it going for Dwayne Morgan, please. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. He's not off the stage yet. Keep it going. There you go. So, I mean, that was all right? Like, that was okay. No, man, Dwayne killed it. And, I'm very happy that you all had an opportunity to hear that. As he mentioned towards the end of his set, we have some of his books available. He has several of his titles, including his most recent book, The Sweet Life. So go ahead and take a look at some of those books. We have merchandise that's available, the copies of African Anthology, some t-shirts that say "My Home is Here," about the poem that I just dropped. So we've got some of that too. We've got our Thea's Creations. So you can go and buy the mugs, the bucks. What am I saying? You know what I'm trying to say. The nice... Yes, the nice gift items, it's Black History Month. Make a black gift today. Support a black business person. And all of you, come on, go on out, relax, grab a little snack, a little drink. We'll take that intermission. We'll come back in and we'll have a conversation. Dwayne and I will be in the chairs, and we will be very happy to share some of our perspectives with you. We'll see you in a few minutes. Hello, everyone. We are back. Did you enjoy your intermission break? Remember that thing where Dwayne was talking about energy? What the heck was that? Did you guys enjoy your break? There you go. Did you enjoy listening to Dwayne Morgan share his work and his words? Did you enjoy buying Dwayne's books? Excellent. I see people waving copies of the books. If you didn't buy one yet, make sure you buy one before you leave. Because one of the great things about having a series like BlackLit Durham is that it gives us an opportunity not just to hear Black literary voices, not just through this show to amplify those voices, but also to support those voices, both spiritually by being here, but also materially by providing them with new opportunities that you might be aware of, by buying their merchandise, by sharing the word about who they are and what they're about and what they can offer. And I'm so very happy and proud that over the last 2.5 years that we've been doing this show, that we've been able to do that for so many artists. I mean, frankly, Dwayne doesn't need my help in that respect, but what we do need to do is to also be able to highlight those in our community who have done the work, as he was saying, and show them their flowers. You know what I'm saying? And so it's always an honor for me to have the opportunity to show some flowers to this man, because I have so much respect for what he's been able to do in terms of building himself up and supporting his family and taking care of what he needs to take care of, but also in being that stalwart within the community that folks can look to and say, if we want to give an example of what Black excellence looks like in our community, we have one right here. So I just want to share that once again. And so we're going to just talk a little bit, and I'm going to ask Dwayne a couple questions, and then y'all can ask him some questions, and we're just going to talk. How's that sound for everybody? Cool. We have Gary down here who's going to have a microphone for the audience, just so that everybody can hear you and that it gets picked up on cameras. He'll come to you if you have a question or a comment. He'll hand you the mic, and you can say what you're going to say. Cool? All right. So, Dwayne, I mean, the first thing that I want to ask you is, so obviously we've been following each other on social media forever. And so this year I saw that you've been posting at the end of each week, your engagements that you did. And now, if I remember correctly, the end of the first week, I think it was 18. And at the end of last week, it was 28. Talk about what Black People High Season is like for you personally.
So, I know that February's hectic. So pretty much January is just kind of like mentally preparing for February. And February is not sleeping properly, not eating properly, because you're just constantly on the go to get to different things. Oddly enough, this is the first year in a long time where the weather actually canceled some gigs. So I actually had a day off yesterday.
What?
Because the 2 gigs for yesterday got canceled. So I went to the spa yesterday. So I made it a spa day to treat myself, be good to yourself, you know what I mean? So this is gig 30 of the month so far. So here we are.
Unbelievable. So, and I want people to understand this, that this is not just what Dwayne is experiencing, that there are many speakers, artists, presenters. Basically, if you're Black and you have 2 talents to rub together, you're usually very heavily in demand. And so it's not unusual to do 2 or 3 gigs every day for all 28 days of the month. This is not unusual. But I'm interested to hear what you think, for these folks around the idea that, okay, that's nice, but we're Black 365 days of the year. What does that look like for you in terms of thinking about your Blackness in the first instance and your artistry in the second instance, and how that should or maybe could be spread out more evenly across the calendar?
For me, I'm Black 365 days. You just pay a premium for my Blackness in February. So that's, we just add tax in February, you know what I mean? But I'm in a position where I get booked throughout the year. So, February, again, sometimes in August, people start booking me for February because, the demand in February for me is high. But I'm one of those lucky ones who actually, is booked right throughout the year. Usually summer's kind of dead, so summer is just kind of like chill time, which is good for me. But throughout the year, I've kind of put in the work to know that the things that I'm speaking about, like the things that I spoke to y'all about, don't have nothing to do with February. That's just life. That's just everyday things. So part of the work for me has to be to educate people that what I'm coming to speak about can be spoken about at any time and it is relevant. So, if I was going to do a presentation, which this is just about Black History Month, then why am I doing that in August? That don't make no sense. So I had to, get my head into a certain mindset that says, create something that can be done at any time and still be relevant, but people will pay more for it in February.
That seems fairly intelligent. I've never accused you of being a bad business person. I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you about, When Sisters Speak is coming up. For those of you who don't know, Dwayne, on top of being a top-notch performer, is also a very well-known and respected show producer. And I guess the jewel in the crown for him is the twin shows When Brothers Speak, When Sisters Speak. Have any of you ever attended When Brothers Speak or When Sisters Speak? You got a couple?
Yes.
I
appreciate you.
I've attended a few. I've performed in a couple. And it is an amazing thing where it's a concert of Black artists doing poetry. That's it. That's the concept. And it has been going for over 20 years now. Mm. It continues to be incredibly well attended. People get their guys' nights and girls' nights together and get themselves all prim and proper and get in front of the photo thing and all of the fancy pictures and stuff. It's an event. These shows are an event. And so I know that when we did the African anthology, you all saw that, I edited this book that was out on the table. Dwayne is in that book. And what he contributed to the book was an essay that was talking about his experiences organizing shows like When Brothers Speak and When Sisters Speak and getting support for it through the granting agencies. What has that sort of evolution been for you in terms of like getting the support that you need outside of the community and the sort of support that you've gotten inside of the community so that those shows could have that kind of longevity?
All right, so first of all, for anyone who does not know, When Brothers Speak is a show of just Black men poets, just like what I was doing, but I get poets from the States and different parts of Canada, and there's 6 men every time. And When Sisters Speak is just the Black women's version of that. So on March 29th of this year, we'll be doing the 25th annual edition of When Sisters Speak. That means I've been creating spaces for Black women for 25 years. So tickets for that are on Ticketmaster, and it's, like Greg said, like literally 500 people show up every year just to support this show, and it is so important and so necessary. And if you have the means, please be in one of the seats, because it's just magical to share this with so many people around you. Like, the energy in the room is awesome. Years ago, I would spend a lot of time, trying to get grants and stuff like that. And it just became so frustrating, trying to justify why the grants were necessary. And it almost, it went against my spirit in the sense that I've never liked asking people to justify what I do.
Right.
The things that I do are self-explanatory to me. They justify themselves. People show up. It means something to people. So I couldn't tell you the last time I got a grant to do the show. Every year it is funded by my Visa card. And I just understand how important this show is, and I will use whatever means at my disposal to make sure that the show happens.
Right.
And it's downtown in a big theater, so it's not like anybody has to stand up. Like it's posh. People go and they get their hair done and stuff. Like it's a nice night out kind of event. So I definitely, if you haven't been, I encourage you to come check it out. If you have been, come back, because this year we're celebrating the 25 years. And what's becoming more difficult now is that as spoken word becomes more popular, it's like, the cost for artists is more. The hotels cost more, the flights cost more, and it's like trying to find that point where the ticket price makes sense. Because most people see the ticket price, they're like, yo, Dwayne's getting rich. I'm like, if you only knew how little of that actually comes back to me. But there's so many things, like the theater costs and the union costs and the all sorts of things. But it's like, so it's really just trying to balance it out in a way that it actually makes sense so that I'm not losing money. Because I've never been one who, wants to profit off of my community. But I want to make sure I'm doing things that make sense, right? At the end of the day, I shouldn't lose money to do it, right? So it has to make sense. So it's really just trying to find that delicate balance with the way, artist demands are. And it's a negotiation every year, just trying to figure out, all right, the prices for different artists. And there's some artists have to be like, all right, I'll come back to you next year.
Yeah, next time.
And, we'll just try and figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, man, for sure. One quick question for you from me before I open up to the audience. Obviously, the last 5 years have been very different than the previous years of your career. You talk about how going through the pandemic affected and impacted your career and sort of how you've adapted and adjusted.
Firstly, no disrespect to anyone who had struggles or tragedy during COVID, but that was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me and my career. What I do is easily transferable to online. So the minute things switched to online, I was able to be like, oh, I'm just all over it. Yeah. And I would, businesses were just looking for things to do for their employees and stuff. So it's like, I would be on a call at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, take a break on another call, 10:30 to 11:30 to eat lunch, 1 o'clock on it. Like every day was just going. I'm like, I have never been this busy ever. So the work that I was able to do during COVID is now feeding me now, right? It's like planting seeds and now reaping harvests, because there's so many different people who know who I am, who know what I do. And the beautiful thing was I was actually able to go and get bookings in Vancouver, in Calgary, in wherever, and I didn't have to travel to be there. Just sit in front of my computer, change my shirt. All right, well, let's do this. You know what I mean? And it was just like, just taking advantage of the moment. It took a while, though, for me to get to that point, because the biggest lockdown that we had happened the day before my When Sisters Speak show.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
The artists had already flown in. They were in the hotel. And then they said, you can't have more than this many people in a space. And the theater was like, we got to cancel the show. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. So like the poets, like nobody knew what was going on. So the poets, we had to send them, back home, and they're performing in the airport and just doing all sorts of stuff and posting up videos of them. I came to Toronto, there's no show, whatever. So I was very salty for a little bit. But then after that, I always look for, where is the opportunity here? And I found the opportunity, and I maximized that opportunity as much as possible. And it has been beautiful since then. It also allowed me to stop doing things I didn't want to do.
That's right.
There were things that I was doing and I didn't even realize I didn't want to do them. But when COVID made me stop doing them, I'm like, why am I doing that? I don't want to do that. So now I just do the things I want to do. And life is more fun and enjoyable now, because the only things I do now are things that I want to do. I have no more time to do things I do not want to do.
Brilliant. It's beautiful. And on that note, I want to open up to the audience, because, one of the things that Dwayne wants to do is have a conversation with y'all. We are here. Dwayne and I are both, Durham affiliated artists. We are part of this community too, and would love to hear what the audience and the community has to say. Questions, comments, feedback, doesn't matter. Whatever is on your mind, on your heart that you want to share right now. We could do that. Gary's got the mic. And just put your hand up and he will bring it to you. Don't be shy. Dwayne, as I said, Dwayne is the shy one. You don't need to be shy.
Hi. So you said something earlier that I was thinking about, and I've never said out loud, but you said when you were having your daughter, you didn't want to have a son. And I went through the exact same experience, and it just never said it out loud, never heard anyone say it to that moment. And it's just like, yeah, you're right. Like when my wife was pregnant, I did not want a son. I was like, I don't have to raise a boy to have to deal with any of the things that I've dealt with, the things that my father had to teach me. I don't want that. Let me just get a daughter. So it's just something I just wanted to say. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm happy that someone said it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's something that we don't often speak about, and it's also something that is tragic in a sense, because it's like, imagine living in a world where there are people who in the happiest moment of their life are saying, I don't want a boy because of what could happen to him. And that speaks to where we're at as a society and things that work that still needs to be done so that people don't have that kind of fear and worry. But I wanted nothing to do with a boy because I didn't want anyone to have to deal with the things I had to deal with. So I'm like, yo, give me a girl and I'll try and figure it out. And that was the whole vibe. So thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, folks. Are there other comments or questions in the room? It's okay. Just let it go.
As you might be thinking of that, I'm going to do a little shameless plug here.
Oh, good.
Outside, like where I have my books, like if you didn't take one of my business cards, definitely take one, because what I also do is I have these trips where I bring people from the GTA to Africa. And one of the things that is so important to me at this point in my life is normalizing going to Africa and seeing things for your own self. Because growing up, there was so much negativity that I saw and heard about Africa that I wanted nothing to do with it. When people were like, oh, your people are from Africa, I was ashamed and embarrassed. And then I went in 2013 for the first time. I brought 16 people from the GTA with me. And when we went to South Africa, and when I got to the hotel in Johannesburg, I looked out the window, and across the street was the Johannesburg Lamborghini dealership. And I'm like, hey, nobody ever told me about no Lamborghini dealership in Africa. All I ever saw was World Vision commercials for $1 a day, all this kind of stuff. And it was so important to see through my own eyes and to start unlearning so much conditioning that happens in this part of the world. So 2 years ago, I did another trip where I brought 15 people. And next week, Thursday, I'm bringing another 13 people, and we're going to Namibia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Johannesburg. I don't know when the next one is going to be, but if you take my card and say you're interested, I'll just put you on a little email list that if I know the next one's coming, I will send you an email and say, hey, here's the next trip. And we always give people like 18 months in advance to like chip away at the payments and stuff like that to make it happen. But I wanted to make sure to throw that out there because there's some people who want to go to the continent. They don't want to go by themselves. If they know that they're going with like a group of people from Toronto, they just kind of feel more comfortable to go. These trips, there's a whole itinerary, so you don't have to plan nothing. You just wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, get on a bus, and have a good time. So I definitely want to put that out there. And it doesn't matter. This is not just for Black people. We bring all sorts of people who just want to be there and want to see and want to experience. So I think moving forward with where I'm at in life, that is something that's very dear to me. So I just want to throw that out to as many people as possible who might want to go to the continent, who haven't been, to just, email me and I can add you to that list.
For more information, please check out dwaynemorgan.ca.
Thank you so much for being here. I know I didn't bring you here, but I feel like I did, and like spiritually, like it just felt like a great experience. So thank you. I wanted to ask you, what's the one thing outside of the work you do that you do to maintain good mental health?
To maintain good mental health, well, one is what I was saying before. I no longer do things I don't want to do. Right? So think of how upset and negative we feel when we're doing things that we don't want to do. Right? So I have just cut all of that stuff out. There are people who, invite me to do certain things, and it's like, I don't want to do that. I'm just not going to, right? So that's the first thing, is being able to say no to things, not doing the things that I don't want to do. Because if I go to do something that I don't want to do, if I'm at some place I don't want to be at, I'm just going to be pissed off that I'm there. Like, how much longer do I have to be here? All sorts of stuff, right? Every opportunity that I get, I try to be nice to myself. So like I said, stuff got canceled yesterday. I went to the spa. Right? And I went and just chilled and had a me day and me time. Spending time with my daughter, just doing nothing. Like, well, now she works and has a job and no time for her dad. But prior to that, every Friday was daddy-daughter date night until she got a job. So every Friday, religiously, I'd say, hey, where do you want to eat? We go to a restaurant, we have dinner together, we do something together or whatever. That for me was joy of just spending time with my daughter, just me and her doing whatever, she wanted to do. Really, and I travel also as much as I can. People don't always have the opportunity to do that. I love not being here, especially in the winter. But it also helps me to appreciate what I have here. But it's so good to just see how people are living in other places, because then it kind of reminds you, oh, you know what? That thing I'm stressing about is not really a big deal compared to, what you're seeing in other places and different things. So even if it's just a road trip, sometimes I'll just go to a different place for a couple nights and just be like in a new environment. Nobody knows me here. I can do whatever I want, be whoever I want here. And for me, those are things that I do just in terms of my mental health.
Cool. No problem. That's amazing. Yasmin, go ahead.
Hello. The question I have, and I know it's not an easy one, but I just want your perspective, is you've had to build spaces or safe spaces for yourself to be able to speak and have your platform. And as a result, it's created an even wider network of safe spaces for Black men. But I want to know, like, what you felt are the most important things in creating these safe spaces for Black men to have their voices and speak.
Well, one of the first things is like, with my When Brothers Speak show, nothing is censored. So I don't tell anyone, you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't use this language. If that is you, do it, right? However it lands with the audience, that's how it lands. So the first part is just be yourself, be you. I think, a lot of work also goes into cultivating an audience that is there to listen. I've gone to so many functions where I'm trying to perform, somebody's at the bar ordering a drink, somebody's trying to talk to a girl over here, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, is anyone even hearing what I'm saying? So creating a space where, like Greg said, 500 people are in a theater for one purpose, to listen, because there's nothing else happening. There's no dancers, there's no nothing, it's only somebody on stage talking. So creating that space where the audience knows, oh, I am here to listen to someone speak, also helps to do that and creates that reciprocal thing, right? So I think, just allowing the artists to be themselves and cultivating within the audience that you are here to listen. And, if people, like when you're at the event, if people aren't paying attention, the audience will let you know to shut up. Like they're on one like that. They'll be like, what are you doing? Why are you here? Like, it's not that, oh, we're at this cool poetry. It's not that. It's like, no, we are actually here to listen to what these brothers have to say and what these sisters have to say. And every artist, especially the ones that visit from the UK or, the States, they always tell me that night, or they send me a message and they're like, it is so rare to be on a stage like that where people are just listening to you. Like, they are so used to all the distractions and all the people disrespecting them, not listening, that to be on a stage where people are hanging off of your every word is so rare to them. And that is something that I really take pride in cultivating.
I just want to add one quick thing to that, Dwayne, is that not only are those people there to listen, but it is a poetry literate audience as well. Like, these people have been supporting for years, and they come to these shows, they come to all of the different events, not just those spoken word concerts, but other events that Dwayne has been running over the years and other people in town have been running. These people understand spoken word. They know poetry. They know who the poets are. They know the work, and they have a deep, abiding respect for the art form. And so not only are those people listening, but they're appreciating, and they can hear the nuance, and they understand what the artist is doing in a way that I don't think many of them have the experience of having crowds that large that can do that. So it's really powerful. So if you got something to do on March 29th, cancel it, buy a ticket, show up. That was my final plug for you, brother.
Appreciate it.
There you go. We'll take one more. Way up at the top. Yes, my brother. Gary is slowly making his way there. Gary is almost there. Gary is there.
So, did you find that you were always artistically inclined, or was your passion for spoken word and your mission of, spreading the good message something that you discovered later on?
So I discovered the talent when I was in grade 12. And I was the president of the Black students group at my high school. And I decided to write something for a Black History Month assembly at my school. It was like the first poem I ever wrote, so I didn't even know if this thing was going to be good or not. It turned out that it kickstarted all the other stuff. I had no idea I had any kind of artistic inclination whatsoever. I don't come from an artistic family. My parents, again, being immigrants from Jamaica, they didn't go to the arts and whatever. I remember, reggae sunsplash videos, and they would laugh at Muta Baruka on stage with no shoes. And, but they would talk about, Miss Lou and have all these little, Miss Lou poems that were memorized and stuff. So again, it was a big thing when Miss Lou invited me to her home, and I got to sit with her for an afternoon, and she just spoke to me for hours. And, I just soaked that all in. But I had no clue that I was artistic in any way, shape, or form. I just did something, really, and to be honest, it was just to be on stage with the rest of my friends, because all of my friends are rappers, singers, dancers, and I'm like, yo, how can I get on stage with them? Because I couldn't do none of them things. So I'm just like, yo, let me try to write a poem. And 2 women heard the poem that I wrote. They didn't even go to my school. They just happened to be in the school at that day, and they're just like, you should keep writing. And nobody had ever told me I was good at anything. So the first time I was hearing somebody say, oh, you're good at something. So I'm like, okay, let me run with this. And that was really all that it took. So part of the reason why I do so many things like this is because a perfect stranger told me I was good at something and encouraged me. And we have a sister at the front here who I've been telling her all night to perform her work on the open mic, but we didn't have the open mic because perfect strangers did that for me. They breathed life into me. They believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And because of that, that was the impetus to start doing all of the other things, to be like, all right, let me at least try, right? Because the first one was really just to be on stage with my friends, but then I had to try something else. Could I do it again? And 32 years later, here we are. So that has really been the journey. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And the other questions and comments in the audience, I just want to say one quick thing about Dwayne before we wrap up the show. So he was talking about how he did that poetic performance when he's in grade 12. So I don't want to say what year that is because I know what year it is. But he did that. He got encouraged, he leaned into it, and he's still doing it 32 years later. Dwayne has never had a traditional job. He has been doing this since he was a teenager and made an entire career, not just any career, but one of the most remarkable careers of any Black literary artist in the last half century. And we have had the pleasure of spending the evening with him. And I want to say thank you, because as you say, in Black History Month, you could be doing just about anything, and you chose to be here. So I appreciate that. I know that that is a marker of our friendship and our longtime collaboration, but it's also the marker of who you are as a person and your desire to help community and to boost people up, to make sure that they have the opportunity to follow whatever vision they have, artistic or otherwise, but to see that what you can visualize can be actualized. And I just want to, again, thank you for providing that example for people to be able to see and move with. Once again, everybody, give it up for Dwayne Morgan.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you tonight to our partners with the Ajax Public Library, as well as What's Your Story Author Services. Big up to our vendors out in front. Tia's Creations is here with us. Blue Heron Books were unable to be here with us tonight, but they're usually here as well. Our friends with Patty Gal. We are also, in terms of supporting Black art, we're also doing what we can to support Black business. So we appreciate them and their participation here as well. Of course, the people who have helped behind the scenes, Gary, who does our audio visual, taping of our shows, and he was the mic runner today. So thank you, Gary, for everything you do for this series. It's really important. And of course, the people here at the St. Francis Center and our men in the booth, the people at the concessions, all the folks here at St. Francis who do an amazing job of making this art center available to folks here in Ajax, which, as I always say, is Canada's blackest town. And we are lucky to be able to gather and do this every other month. We will be back here at the end of April to do this all again, tying into National Poetry Month and the blooming of spring. Hopefully there will be no snow on the ground, and we will all be in here toasty like what? Again, my name is Greg Frankson. I'm privileged to be the artistic director and host of this show. Thank you all for coming. We will see you next time. Get home safely. Have a wonderful night.
All right, thank you.
Hey.